Beautiful. All righty. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the R2 podcast. On today's episode, our guest is none other than Dr. Jeffrey Langmaid. The list of accomplishments he has compiled is incredibly long and includes everything from writing his own book to the founding of multiple companies. Jeff is likely best known in the chiropractic world as the creator of the Evidence-Based Chiropractor, a brand focused on better integrating hold on, let me restart. All right, back again. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the R2 podcast. On today's episode, our guest is none other than Dr. Jeffrey Langmaid. The list of accomplishments he has compiled is incredibly long and includes everything from writing his own book to the founding of multiple companies. Jeff is likely best known in the chiropractic world as the creator of the Evidence-Based Chiropractor, a brand focused on better integrating chiropractors with medical doctors through research, marketing, and referrals. His wealth of experience with operating online marketing businesses is why we are here today to talk with him about the role of social media in chiropractic. So, Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. That you said my name correctly, and the accomplishments made me sound accomplished. So thank you so much. I'm jazzed. I'm already good.
What we do here.
That's what we do. We hype people up. This is huge. So one big question I think right now that revolves in the student's mind, which is primarily who our audience is, chiropractic students, those that are either currently in school, recently graduated, or potentially looking to jump into the profession, is where does social media fit in our world? I think a lot of us are active in social media personally and potentially professionally in the future, and we see a lot of chiropractic happening online. So with that being said, from your experience working with a wide variety of chiropractors, what is the general public's current perception of chiropractic as it relates to social media?
Oh man, I thought you were going to ask what about chiropractors. The public, now we're getting into so as I would say, if you check out my YouTube channel, don't look at the comments with children around. That is maybe the best way to. So I think the public is super divisive, right? Meaning there's a ton of people that think chiropractic is the craziest thing on planet Earth. There's a ton of people that chiropractic like saved their lives. They got back to work, they got back to sports, whatever it might be. So I think it's incredibly divisive, which is not bad, and it's not a surprise. We know like 15% of people utilize chiropractors. I think it's closer to 10 personally. So you're by definition odd. You're weird if you see a chiropractor. Like, you're not part of the majority, you are part of the minority. So with that comes all of the good and bad of it, meaning you get the people that are super into it, like chiropractic saved my life, and that's correct. You also deal with the other side where people are like, chiropractors are the worst thing ever created. And unfortunately and fortunately, perception is reality. So one, I think when you talk about social media, it's super important to understand is like, not everybody's going to like you, and you got to have some thick skin around it, right? Because and that's actually a good thing. In some ways, that actually tells you you're on the right path. Now, you don't want to be just a jerk or be a complete, I don't know, whatever, just to get a reaction. That'd be like alarmist or something. That's corny and cheesy and gets old super quick when you're just the guy, like the yelling, screaming person all the time just to get a reaction, right? But I don't think like good student docs, good docs doing good things and showcasing what they're passionate about. Yeah, if you get a little negative sentiment or some questions or things like that, that's okay. That's part of the process. And I think it's like, you just got to understand that getting out publicly. And what's one thing I think that's different between getting out there and like using social media as a human being in today's society and using it as a business and a brand is that most people aren't going to like hop over to some random guy or gal's feed and like try to like destroy them in the comments. But you kind of, when you start to go over towards healthcare and being more public, hey, that can happen. Again, I don't think it necessarily means that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think public sentiment, long story short, is very divided. I would also say that it is much more overall positive than it's ever been in the past. And I also would say that there are more people outside of chiropractic promoting and defending and highlighting chiropractic than definitely ever before in the past as well. So those are all like super positive indicators, but as they say, haters gonna hate. So, don't be super alarmed if you start to notice somebody being like, what, like Johnny Cakes being like, chiropractic is a scam artist, you know, and you're like, I'm talking about like McKenzie exercises, dude. Like, what are you fighting about? Just a normal part of what's going to happen in today's world.
What I have heard, so I'm with Dr. Bo Beard at the farm, and we had been kind of experimenting with like putting some videos out and stuff, and you know, people were giving us flack for certain things. And honestly, he gets a kick out of reading the comments sometimes.
Yeah.
And I brought him one of the first few videos that I posted. I was like, all right, so what should I say to something like this? He goes, honestly, like the more comments you get, the more views you're gonna get. So it doesn't really matter if they're positive or negative. And now what do you know about that in particular, like blanket statement of, okay, if there's more comments on it, more people will see it, whether they're good or bad for what the video is putting out.
For sure. I mean, engagement across all social channels is how the channels essentially, in an overly simplistic way, define success, interest in a video. And when they see it being quote unquote successful or interesting, that's when they will continue to show it to more people organically without putting ad spend behind it. So it's like a double-edged sword, right? Because it's like, you don't want to just like load up with like haterade comments and be like, ah, cool. Like at least my channel, like that's for politicians. That's not for healthcare people, right? So, you know, the goal is not to be divisive, in my opinion, just to be divisive. That to me, that's like totally weak. But I do think there is like, it's good to have a little bit of controversy, a little bit of back and forth, and that's normal and healthy. So I would, you know, my most commented video that I've ever put out is like the rebuttal to Joe Rogan. 95% of the comments are dramatically negative, which I'm like, don't look at this with your child. Like, you know, it'll scar them for life. So that's helped that video continue to, quite frankly, I have my channel monetized. I earn money on that video every single month. Like, I'm like, okay, like, you know, that's cool. Like, and then people get turned on to other videos, etc. And I didn't put that video out to be super divisive. Like, it's so vanilla. Now, if I redid it now, I actually would be way more aggressive, but it was like super, like, you know, it's super hands off, and it's actually not as aggressive as I probably should have been. But with that, I did it on purpose. I knew that the keyword Joe Rogan, I'm a keyword research fanatic in terms of blogs, content, etc. I knew that there was an arbitrage there, that there was high search, and I use a lot of tools to tell me this stuff as well. But I like had the idea, and I like geek out on this stuff all day, every day. So I knew that I was going to be, it was a high likelihood that that video was going to catch fire for what I do, right? Which is not, you know, I'm not like a YouTuber by definition, right? You know, I'm a super niche B2B within the chiropractic space kind of guy. So clearly that got public attention. But to your point, yes, comments of all kinds, that is, social networks still have, in my opinion, they have ridiculously advanced tools that they apply in an unbelievably simplistic fashion. And what I mean is they know everything, but they use like 1/100th of it. And they're like, likes and comments, people, you know, likes, comments, and share. Like, they know so much more about that. They know all the text. They know the context of the text baseball, and they use like almost none of that. So yes, in a overly simplistic way, and in how I still see social networks applying the tech, which is ridiculously basic, comments, likes, and shares, positive or negative, are going to help that get exposure to more people. Sometimes that's a good thing, and you're like, hey, happy to accept the losses, aka I know there's a bunch of negative comments here, I don't get down about it. For me, example would be like a Joe Rogan video. Like, I don't care, I look at it every single day. Almost every day I have a few additional comments. All of them are ridiculously whack, and I would never read them to like my parents. They would like freak out, and, you know, but it's like, I have thick skin, so I'm like, I don't care. And I see the video continue to gain traction. And as one or two videos pop, then that helps your channel as a whole as well. So then you'll start to notice your other videos and other content pieces, not surprisingly, being shown, because the platform, in a very simplistic way, is like, if they have one thing that's popular, maybe two things will be popular. And engagement to them means time on platform, which is all they care about, is keeping people on their platform. So if people are engaging, whether it's controversy, not controversy, good, bad, or indifferent, if people are engaging, that is a win for the platform, which is why I think I say it's like overly simplistic the way they still do this, considering the data that they have, but it will become a self-perpetuating cycle. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely gonna have to use haterade. I like that a lot.
So with kind of this change towards more people looking to social media because it obviously boosts themselves or their brand, do you see chiropractors or other like related fields looking to virtual chiropractic or some kind of business platform in terms of either treating patients or whatever through social media or through some kind of virtual home network program?
Yeah, the short answer is yes, for sure. I think everything that happened the last few years accelerated that when people like couldn't go in to see their provider of any type, in certain states, like pretty abjectly, like you couldn't go in to see anybody, do anything. So pretty much that accelerated telehealth, telemedicine, however you want to define it. I'll give you two specific examples in two separate fields to illustrate the point. One is a chiropractor that I knew as a student, and now he's been out like 2 years. His name's Grant Elliott. He runs Rehab Fix. He's got like 250,000 followers. Day one, when he graduated school, he's like, I won't give the inside baseball of his business. That's not fair of me to say. He's doing better than 99%, in my opinion, of chiropractors financially. And he's like 2 years out of school. And he was like, yeah, like graduated and was like, cool. Like I have a business right now. Like golden rule applies. Those who have the gold make the rules. In this day and age, those who have the audience make the gold and they make the rules. So audience reigns supreme by far. He had built a really big audience before he even graduated. I think it was like 100,000 at the time. Now he's like 250 plus thousand on Instagram. And that's a lot of heads. Like there's opportunity there to be able to do, he basically does at-home assessments and, rehab based, but he's super focused and niche. He's like, if you have a disc issue and you're trying to avoid surgery, I want to take care of you. He's not like, I take care of everybody, which means I take care of nobody. He's like, neck problem and like shoulder problem. Sorry. Like I take care of low back issues, and it's a great model. And he has been, absolutely killing it from a business sense. Now you might want to get your hands on people, and then that wouldn't be for you because he does not have a physical office where he takes care of people, but he has a virtual office where he takes care of people from around the world. So that's one example. So absolutely. Can you make money and do that? Absolutely. The second example is, I'll say, my wife who's downstairs right now, she's a physical therapist, and she's a pediatric physical therapist and worked in a hospital system for 20 years. And last year she went to virtual PT. So she doesn't have to commute in, and she worked at All Children's, Johns Hopkins Children's, like a legit place. And she's like, I'm good. Like now I can work there for years. Like now I'm like, I'd rather be like at home. I get to now see an extra patient instead of being in the car in the morning and the evening, which I get paid by the hours. It means I make more money. And like, I get to like turn off my computer and like, I don't have to deal with like office politics and all this kind of stuff. Like I get to control my own destiny, have a one-on-one relationship with the patient, and I'm good to go. So those two examples, like 10 years ago, no way, like it just didn't exist. So it doesn't mean you have to do it, but it means that it's available to you for sure. And I think that there's only going to be more unique ways to do that. Another example, a kind of a final example that I would say, and I'm talking in the practice realm, not necessarily like the online business realm, but in the practice realm as well, is, to me, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I've heard some of my friends started to discuss this, where it's like, I'm going to say this from a business sense, like strictly a business sense. So a patient comes in, you have like one product. Like, do you want hands-on care and treatment or do you not? Right? They make a decision and they either start care or they don't. And that's insane. Like from a business sense, that's kind of insane. So it's like, well, if they say no, is there an online course that you can sell them? Which sell them doesn't mean take advantage of. It means actually have a course that's worthwhile, where it's like, cool, like, yeah, like everybody has the same problem. Like, I can't make it in 3 times a week. My insurance like might not work. It does work. It doesn't work. I don't, it's like, why not have I'm saying in a business sense, a downsell of like, okay, the best care and treatment is to come in and see me in the practice. It sounds like you're unable to do that for X, Y, and Z reasons. So one of the things we have available is an online course that I shot. That's me. That's at this price, and in self-paced, and you can do it at home, and people find success that way. It's not as good as seeing me in person where I can like actually get my hands on you, but it's going to be a million times better than nothing, and a hell of a lot better than taking medication or just hoping it goes away. Like, and that's another way. And these are like just tip of the iceberg. I mean, I think that there is an innumerable amount of opportunities to practice in a way that's, I'm just going to say like modern, because in my opinion, digital and physical, I'll sound like a dinosaur in like 5 years when we even define those as separate things, because it's all one thing, the patient experience, and the delivery of it is relatively immaterial.
Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously, like in the last few years, we've seen, I think us as being in school during COVID, we saw a lot more of the capability of like what online healthcare could look like, because we had classes online. I know we had people reaching out like to our docs that we were shadowing of like, oh yeah, can we do this online? We had classes like electives being taught about telehealth. So, and I mean, I know we've all watched Grant Elliott do his thing, and as he was a former Logan guy, so that's been pretty cool too. So like I agree. It'll be crazy to see it in the next few years. And then kind of shifting gears a little bit back to social media a little bit. Where do you see that you get like the most, what methods for you in particular, do you see the most translation from, okay, this was my promotional marketing idea, and then it produced this many people come to see me in clinic? Like, what did you see was most effective of, oh, I did this and more people came to see me?
It's a great question. In my opinion, like in the Smart Chiropractor brand philosophy, like we define it as teach and invite consistently. It's basically like a healthcare version of like jab, 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 right hook, like Gary Vaynerchuk would say, where it's like, so we say like teach and invite consistently. Teach, educate, inspire, entertain, engage. Those are teaching moments. That affords you the opportunity to invite. That's your call to action. Give me a call today. Click here to hop on my schedule. Buy this thing. Whatever. Share with a friend. Like whatever the call to action is. And then the last one is the word that nobody wants to hear: consistently. Yeah. So that does not, that consistently across anything. It means like daily. Like, if you really want to get I mean, and Grant could speak to that at a far higher level than I, in terms of putting in hours per day. But I can tell you one thing, it's paying off. Like that, because audience reigns supreme. So I think it's less about like, what do you like? Is it good or bad to post an adjustment video? Like, I don't know. It depends on what you want to do. Like, I don't have anything against it. I mean, is it good or bad to post rehab? It's like, is it good or bad to post like rehab exercise videos when there's 1 bazillion rehab videos already out there? I don't know. Depends on what you want to do. Like, so to me, I think it's still early. It's never too late. The second component is I always think about it like you're trying to curate your ideal patients. So if your ideal patient is a rehab-based patient, I probably would do way more rehab-based exercises videos and to attract that type of person than like, I don't know, some esoteric mindset type thing, right? You know what I mean? And I think mindset plays a role in everything, but you got what I'm saying. I think you want to match your content to like, like who's my ideal patient? Am I like super into pediatrics, geriatrics, sports care? Like the content there is probably going to be a little different, right? Like geriatrics, I might be like, yo, here's how you like stay on the golf course and get to like play once a week. Like, it's like people hoping for just that, right? Where it's like, if you're like, like TPI heavy on like sports guy, and you're like, I take care of college athletes. Like, I want to show you how to play every day, like not once a week, and have a career for the next 30 years, not just like banging around with the fellas, rolling out the nursing home, or, pediatrics, again, totally different, right? It's like, okay, you're probably speaking to the mom, obviously more than the child. So now I'm going to identify the patient avatar, basically, right? Who's my avatar? Who do I want to see? Because I want to put out content that attracts them. Well, why the hell wouldn't I do that, right? And but most people try to be too wide, because they're like, if I put out pediatric content, nobody else will like anything. And it's like, worry about, you got to give people a clue to go on. Like, it's like, if you're talking about all these different things, nobody knows what the hell you're about. And it's like, I always use the example, if somebody I'm not a golfer, but in the example of me in town, if I was like trying to be like, okay, like I'm like Webster certified for pediatrics, I take care of some kids, I do a golf assessment, and like, okay. And then somebody in town is cruising around, like, okay, Jeff, like says golf there, cool. And then they go over to Sean's page, and it's like a golfer, all right? And he's like, I take care of God. Like I'm choosing now, right? It's done. So like being wide, like it doesn't help you anyway. So I like don't get. It's like, well, I don't want to not have something here. It's like, no, if you have it and it's like the 18th thing, nobody cares. You can't compete on that. Like, what are you doing? Like, so I think niching down, identifying a patient avatar, and then putting out content in a teach. So now I'm going to teach around that topic. And every time I teach, I'm going to invite something. Content without a direction is a dream. Like it doesn't mean everything's a sale, but it means like do something, like subscribe, share, comment, call, like make an ask. And then I'm going to do that consistently. That would be how I would recommend making the biggest impact on social, because it is a noisy space. It is a crowded space. So you have to be consistent. The more that you teach, the more that you inspire people to be like, okay, cool, I want to keep learning. That's how you build a pipeline of future patients.
That makes so much sense. Like as you were explaining that in my head, I was thinking about pages that I've looked at, like, oh, this page is all over the place. I stopped looking. And then I feel like, oh, just there's somebody else. Yeah. Oh, good point.
It's funny because I got all my like social media ideas for the future, and I literally have just like every little category and like a couple little video ideas for each. So as you're saying that, I'm deleting all that. And
just got to focus it in. Just got to focus it in.
So my question for you, Jeff, for us three, as kind of in our last year of chiro school, phasing out, getting into the real world, what's your advice for someone who just wants to get started in the space? Just in terms of like, what's a good strategy? What's the equipment you need? What's a good place to start?
It's a great question. It's a complex one, right? Because there's a million factors that can really impact things. So a couple of things that I think are really, really important is, and these are just like, I'll start with like general business advice, and then I'll kind of narrow in on the specifically the chiro side. But like, you got to be wary of being undercapitalized. I know that's like, it's like, God, I got to like take another loan, and I don't want to, I want to take the least amount of loan possible, if, and hopefully no loan, like, can I bootstrap this thing and just like get it done? But it's like undercapitalization in business in general is the number one reason why businesses fail. You run out of money. Like, so, now that doesn't mean be flippant and take 20 times more, but the good news is unlike student loans, the banks are not going to give out a ridiculous sum of money, just for somebody starting a healthcare practice without any collateral. So don't worry about taking too much. You will be worrying about getting enough, right? So I think undercapitalizing is really a big challenge, because what occurs is the same old story as old as time, which is the first thing to go when you're undercapitalized is the marketing, and you get into a death trap and a death spiral. And you're like, I can't spend money on marketing. That's the first thing I'm going to cut, because I can't cut this other stuff. Then you're not getting out there as much as you should. Then you start feeling bad. Now your mindset goes to shit. And all of a sudden your practice is non-existent anymore. And cash is a great way to protect mindset. And that is one of the most important things, in my opinion. It doesn't mean have a ridiculous sum of money at a ridiculously high interest rate that's wasteful, but it means don't penny pinch on the capital necessary, because you need the money for marketing and you want to last long enough. I always view business as a war of attrition. I just want to be around long enough. I'm around long enough, I'm going to be successful. There's no question about it. And in my imaging company, we've lived this for 3 or 4 years. We haven't made very much money, but we're just sticking around long enough. We're keeping the lights on. I haven't taken $1 out of that business in 4 years, and I put in quite a bit, but I'm like, we're sticking it out. Now, you also need to know when to pull the plug on things. Don't get me wrong. I have like a graveyard of about 9 failed businesses in the last 5 or 6 years, many of which are completely guitar kit online, scrubs, medical, like companies that nobody in the chiropractic space know that I've even started and closed and shuttered and all this stuff. But my point of all that is undercapitalization is a big problem. So be cautious about that. The second thing that I think is really, really important is just understanding where you can leverage other people's skill sets. I find that a lot of early docs, by necessity in some ways, but in other ways not, are just like cheap. Like, and I'm just like, I don't know, like you got to like leverage people's experience. Like not everybody who has a product is like out to get you. Like, you know what I mean? And I feel like there's like this weird thing of like, I don't know, like I'll see a chiropractor like go to a event and they'll spend like $25,000 on a laser. But then if somebody says the word marketing, the other person's like, there must be a complete charlatan. But they just spent like 25K on a laser. And I'm like, huh? Like, and I know their practice, and I'm like, you shouldn't be spending 25K. Your problem's not a laser, buddy. Like your problem is volume in the practice. Like, you need to, of course there are like crappy companies and great companies and, great website companies and crappy website companies, great Facebook ad companies, bad Facebook ad companies, great email marketing companies like us and others. Just kidding, but not really. And that's a real thing. But I also think that's part of like, you got to leverage, like, where can you leverage the money that you do have for somebody else's expertise? Like, the point of paying is to be able to grow faster. And you don't want to, I see sometimes young docs, they're restricting the growth of their practice because they're fearful to spend money. And they're like just defensive about like every single thing around the business, and it's like, they want their hands on every single little aspect. And it's like, Phil Knight doesn't make every decision at Nike. Like, Jobs didn't make every decision at Apple. Like chill out a little bit. So I think leaning into others' expertise is important. Now, it's also important to have your own voice and to know what's going on. I don't mean to go off on a tangent on this, but those would be some things that I think are really, really important. In terms of gear or stuff like that, I think it's whatever you want. Like, I don't think there's necessarily like a super right or wrong way. I'd caution against overspending. If anything, I'd caution against overspending on gear and equipment too soon, because like, what's the difference between, do you need that like Cox 9 table that's like whatever, 20,000, or can you get away with like a Leander flexion distraction that might be 2,500 or something? Like, depends. Like, if you're going to do 100% spinal decompression or something to that effect, you probably want a Cox table. Like, if that's your unique selling proposition. But if it's not, like, you don't, I think that's the balance, I'd say, is be cautious about spending too much on the equipment. Get what you need, but don't spend too much on the equipment before you even get started, because there's some things, quite frankly, that once you get in, you're like, the workflow on this, on whatever this thing is, just isn't all it's cracked up to be. And then you end up with what I call the graveyard of seminars past, which is every chiropractor's back office, which has a whole bunch of crap that they bought that they don't use ever again. So, that's naturally going to happen in any business, but you want to limit that. So those would be the things that I would say are important, I guess, to get started, is make sure you have enough capital. Don't be super cheap with your marketing, because there are people that can help in a legitimate way and do know more and just have more experience. And then the third component is be cautious about overspending on equipment before you really know the ins and outs of it, because a $2,000 difference on a table might not make that much difference in terms of how many people you can take care of on it before it falls apart. But that 2,000 might save your, what, when you have a rent payment due and you're at like that last month and you just need to blast the extra month to get over the hump. So those would be I'm happy to dig deeper into any of those rabbit holes, but that would be the overlying thoughts that I would have on it.
That was awesome. And for what about, let's say you're starting up, you want to get a social media presence as a student or a doc, what would be some similar advice for that, starting with like Instagram or TikTok or whatever?
I think the platform is whatever you want to spend time on. So I wouldn't have like FOMO, like everybody went like crazy. Here's the thing, so I'll set a couple baseline rules. Every platform, when the platform tries to grow, juices the numbers. I am so old. I remember when you could put out a Facebook video and 100% of your audience saw it, and sometimes more. And I'm so old that I remember when it was like 5 cents cost per click on Facebook, like nonsense type stuff. I'm talking like 15 years. I remember when advertising came out on Facebook and I'm like, yes, please. Like, so I think don't get caught up. Like, everybody got like crazy last year. It was like, TikTok, like I got 17 million views on TikTok. And it was like, yeah, and all of them are in Indonesia. Like, I don't like, okay. Like they're juicing the results just like Instagram did, just like Facebook, like just like MySpace did. Like I've been around, like, like when the platform is trying to grow, they juice the results and then they restrict the results. It's ridiculously basic. So that the story there for me is don't like try to get on TikTok because like everybody's getting views there. Like they're going to run out. And by the way, TikTok is the worst converting platform by far. Doesn't mean you can't convert, but it means it's ridiculous. Facebook is still the best converting platform. View or engagement per like scheduled patient by far. Instagram second, and then TikTok and Snap third. So YouTube is a little bit more difficult to estimate, but don't have like platform FOMO. Like, where do you want to be? And just like go all in, because it's all going to wash out in the end is my point. Yeah, TikTok views sound great right now, and in 2 years is going to be the same reach as Instagram, probably worse. So, and Instagram used to be awesome, and Facebook used to be awesome. So just pick your place, because you could try to like arbitrage it real quick, but I don't know. Like if you don't like the platform, you're going to burn out on it. You might as well just been building on the place you wanted to be the whole time. So I'd say pick one or two max and like start there. The second component that I would say, and I've had this conversation, with Grant, so I don't mind saying it here as either. It's like the second thing is get people off the platform as quickly as possible, because you will be strangled. The money is in the list. You need to get email addresses. That's an owned asset. When you have their email, you have direct communication line. When you don't, you're at the whim of an algorithm. No matter how good you are, the algorithm always gets worse. It's like the opposite of like, no matter how old I get, they all stay the same. Yeah, that's like, what is that? The Matthew McConaughey? What's the movie? Dazed and Confused? That's a really old movie. But anyway, the platform, the algorithm will always get worse. So you want to get owned media, not shared or earned media. And that is, the money is in the list. 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 You need to get those people off of the platform. How do you do that? By enticing them with something actually of value. And you'll start to notice, even when you're providing a free PDF, a free video, now you'll start to see exactly how many of those followers are actually of value. I got 1 million followers and 40 email addresses. But that's a necessary part of the process. So I would say, I would take a following of 2,000 on any platform and 1,500 emails over 1 million followers and 100 emails, because I know I can sell via email, because I can teach and invite consistently. I can control it, and I can publish all the time, direct communication line. So my point of that is that to grow on social, my biggest thing would be choose a platform and go. Understand that it's going to get worse over time, and that's okay. Teach and invite consistently, same philosophy. What are you teaching? Who are you going after, so to speak? And from the get-go, I would be utilizing like a link tree or something like that to try to get people off that platform and onto your list, because that's where your long-term value is going to be. Email has been around 30 years, and yes, it's not as strong as it was 25 years ago, but it is predictable as anything. It's gone down, but it's like this. Like you can go away 5 years and come back, and email marketing is relatively the same. You go away 5 years and come back to Instagram, you're like, what's going on? Like, this doesn't even make sense anymore. I don't even know how to use it anymore. So that shows you the stability of the platform. And I like stable assets. So I use social as a way to connect with people, to draw them into the ecosystem. And that makes me far less vulnerable to being shut down, and I don't put out controversial stuff, but many people that don't put out controversial stuff have been shut down, and 2 million people, 250,000 people, 100,000 people. And you can't like email Facebook support. Can I have those email addresses from those? Yeah, that's not going to go over too well. You can't, it's too late. So my thing on it would be teach and invite consistently, use it as a way to get people onto the list. Don't have FOMO and try to go to like 1 million different places and 1 million different things just because it's popping right now. Until you get like super comfortable, or you're like, cool, I know the lay of the land. I see what's going on. I'm on 4 things. I see this pop in. Great. Like I have a team and I can like push 2 people that way to like blow me up on that platform. That's not the case for 99% of chiropractors. So focus where you're actually going to spend time and attention and feel like you want to be.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to understand, and probably a harder thing to implement, but over time, the learning aspect of how do you take what looks sexy on Instagram and actually turn that into value can be difficult. and actually turning that, and especially when your life and your livelihood depend on it, that's something you want to learn pretty quick. But one question I have that's kind of relevant to me, for a little bit, I've been trying to like build kind of a brand through Instagram, and it's going fine, but the linchpin I've had, the fork in the road I've had to decide to make here within the next year is the brand is just called like Move a Minute, but it doesn't have my name attached to the logo or the name. So the question would be for me, for Alex and Connor here, for anyone else considering opening up on social media, is it better to brand yourself or to brand an entity, business, a brand, and then go from there?
It's an age-old question, and it is
Mhm.
really, really difficult to answer. I don't think that there's an abject answer because I believe it depends upon your end game. And here's what I mean by that. I'm not interested in purchasing Sean Roberts Chiropractic. I'm not Sean Roberts. Like, it's like that
Right.
ain't gonna work. Many chiros have tried. If you have success. So I think it depends. Like, if you're trying to, I personally like the stability of a brand personally, because it is a sellable asset. And I say that with so there's a couple, I'm going to throw out a couple different lines here. So one line I'll throw out into the ocean is, if it's a brand, it is far more sellable than a personal brand. So if your goal is to have something that transcends you, then you definitely want to have a brand name and not a personal name, because detaching it later is ridiculously difficult. The flip side of that, if you're like, I'm Jeff Langmaid, I want to speak on stage, I want people to know who Jeff Langmaid is, then it makes a hell of a lot of sense to build it as a personal brand and not as a company, because it's about me. And that if it's about you, then make it about you. But if it is something that you envision having multiple providers, potential, I know it's hard, you haven't even got started yet, like you're going to sell the thing. It's like, that's so far off. It's like, gosh, it's hard to tell. But so I would even trace it back a few steps earlier and say, do I intend on having like multiple associate docs and this kind of thing? Like, and do I want to bring, if I were to do that, would I want them like on this Instagram channel and that kind of thing? Like, if so, then I would make it brand focused, not person focused, because then it just makes more sense when that stuff starts happening.
Mhm.
If like you are the brand and that's the way it's going to be, like for me at this point, like I view the evidence-based chiropractor as more my personal brand. The smart chiropractor is more of the smart chiropractor from a business sense is probably 15 times larger than the evidence-based chiropractor in terms of revenue, product revenue, right? So I view the evidence-based chiropractor, it has some product underneath it, but minimal. And that's sort of my personal brand. So that's almost been difficult for me to detach from over time, because it's like, that's which was like people like know me as, and I'm like, oh, that's why I've just sort of swayed it more towards, well, it's kind of my personal brand. And then the businesses I'm involved in are the businesses I'm involved in. But from a practicing chiropractic sense, I would reverse engineer, with the end in mind, saying, if I intend on having other associate doctors, it probably makes sense to go brand instead of person. If it's about me and I want to be, I'm sure he has a brand as well, but Stuart McGill, and everybody knows, or like, James Andrews, who obviously has a brand, but it's like, everybody knows James Andrews is James Andrews, right? So it's like, everybody knows James Andrews from Orthopedic Surgeon Sense. So it's like, I bet you that James Andrews, if he has an Instagram himself, it would be 10x bigger than Alabama or Gulf Coast Ortho or whatever is, so I think it just depends, but he's an exception and an anomaly and the guy in that space. And that's not an accident. He clearly wants to be the guy. He's the Tommy John guy, right? So it's like, I think it's, if you want to be the guy or the gal, slap your name on it, because all promotion is good promotion. If you want to build a company and a brand that's transcendent, I think you got to go a little bit more brand focused. And there's some play there, I think, because there is some availability. Brett and Taylor are a great example. Winchester Sport and Spine. It's like, he's like getting away with the brand. He's got his middle last name in there, but it kind of almost sounds like it could be just a brand. Like, so, you know, it also depends on your last name, unfortunately. Okay, you could get a little, some of it makes a little more sense than others to be able to, you know, like sound like this, you know, like ubiquitous thing, as opposed to like, that's clearly that guy's last name, right? So I think like Brett just has a last name that works, where it's like, like Winchester Sports. Is that in Winchesterville? Like, yeah, it's like, you don't know if it's a person or a place or anything else, but other people are, you know, it's real clear when it's their name. So I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I think it depends upon really what you want to do. And it's really hard to bring in other people under that banner, especially on a channel. In a business, you even have more latitude, but on like a channel on social, if it's like Jeff Langmaid and now there's like all this other stuff, like people are just like, thought I was following like Jeff, like this doesn't make sense. But if it's the brand, it's like, oh, this makes sense. Like they're doing their thing, right? So
yeah, I think that's a good point, because I remember from Cressy Sports Performance, they had a similar issue, and they talked about, they put Eric Cressy's name on it because he was the big thing at the time, and then it slowly devolved into people wanting their kids to come see Cressy.
Yeah,
because that's
double-edged
why.
sword.
Yeah, right. Because you were there to see that guy. Now it's,
That's
I'm
right.
not seeing Cressy, so who am I seeing?
Yeah.
So at a business point now, you have, like you said, double-edged sword of, am I seeing a lesser doc now? And you kind of attach that. So no, I like that answer.
Yeah. That is the next question's kind of already been addressed a little bit, I think, because we were talking about followers not necessarily translating to someone who's going to come to your door. They might just be, like you said, in Indonesia. So if, you know, when it is important for you to gain followers, because let's say you have 10 people that see your Instagram page, you know, if all of them come, right, you got 10 patients, cool. But of a bigger pool, you would have a better chance of having people that might come see you. What are some ways that you think would be like a good way to start gaining traction that's not gimmicky or you know, like you had said, trendy, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, my biggest advice is like, don't buy followers and don't use bots. It will give you vanity metrics, but if you start to do, here's the problem with that, and this is the challenge that most people don't think of, is that it's like, well, like, I'm not concerned about a platform shutting down because of bots. I'll get to what I recommend, but what I don't recommend is bots or buying followers. I'm not worried even about a platform or like somebody looking at the list and being like, I could even care less about that. I just look at it like super pragmatically. I'm like, damn, now I'm going to try to start spending money to reach these people. It's all filled with junk. Like, I'm wasting money. I hate wasting money. Like, I'm, you know, what am I doing? Like, I paid to have these people just to have a number to make somebody else happy. And now I'm paying to reach my followers because I'm boosting posts and doing all this stuff. And now I'm paying to reach these people that, you know, like, so that sucks. Like, don't do it. So my recommendation is probably something I'd probably heard this from like Gary Vaynerchuk back in the day or something. And I just think it makes sense. And I might be altering it a little bit, but like, I don't like, I'd identify X amount of businesses, 2 or 3 or, you know, 10, it doesn't have to be 700 in other words, but I'd identify a handful of businesses, practices, businesses, whatever, and be like, if I had this person's followers, I'd be hyped. Like, they're my people. Like this person has all, like, not all, you don't know every single person, but it's like their brand is what I want my brand to be. Like, the people that follow them, if they followed me, I'd be hyped. And I literally, as they say, and there will be blood, I drink their milkshake. I go on and I start following every one of those people. And then I go onto every one of those people's pages that I started to follow. And I start liking pictures. And I start commenting down below. Not like super spammy, like, come on over, like, look at all the, you know, but not like spam style, but like actually taking 10 minutes a day and just like banging out 25 people. Sick stretch, man. I love it. Like, awesome. Like, it looks like you're gaining here. Like, and you do that for like 2 weeks, like we would be the same way. Like, it's like, if somebody comments on any of my stuff, I mean, a month is like so extreme. For like a week straight, if I see somebody like commenting and liking and commenting on a post of mine 7 days in a row, if I was posting daily and I saw 7, like, I know who they are at that point. I'm like, Jack's back again. Like, you know, and I'm going to follow Jack. So you will they'll follow you, but you got to put in a little work. So that's where I'm like, cool. Like, who's my ideal Man, I wish I had, everybody that's following this orthopedic group in town, if they followed me, I'd love it. I'm going to that orthopedic group's Instagram. I'm going to their followers. I'm following every single one of those people. Now it brings all their stuff in my feed, and I'm just looking through my feed each day. Bip, bip, like, great job, Jane. Looks like you're getting better. Great job, Johnny. Like, and I'm just making myself known. And you're just going to start to see them fall over into you over time. And then you can unfollow as time goes on. So you don't, if you get worried about the vanity metric of like, you don't want to look like, you got like everybody. Don't worry about it in the beginning. If you have like 50 followers and you're following 5,000, like you give it a little time, but clearly over time, you want that to kind of, get some momentum and flip the other way, where in an ideal world, you have at least 3 to 5 times more followers than following, but like work the system a little bit. Like don't get ants in your pants like overnight, like, crap, like this looks weird. Yeah, it looks weird. Like get over it. I can go to work. Like, because in 6 months it won't look weird. And the person that was like, it looks weird, that has 2 followers and you have, 20,000, do you care then? Like, you know what I mean? So, be engaging. Like that's really what it comes down to, is there's no like trick there. It's like, who has your ideal people? Start following those people, and then start like liking and comment and engaging with them. And lo and behold, what do you know? Many of them will start to follow you. And it's like, to me, that's a great offensive way. There's also like the defensive and passive way, where it's just like, well, we just like put out good content ad infinitum and like hope for the best. You can do that, but it's like super slow. It's like, I always think of it like a lottery ticket. Like it's like the band that plays like one show and gets signed to a major label. It's like, yeah, that happens like 1 in 200 million times. Like, and like, yeah, you could just put out something that we all know somebody that put out something that caught fire and all of a sudden they had a bazillion, and everybody else that didn't happen. Like, so are you that special? You might be, but otherwise I feel like people just are, quite frankly, lazy, where it's like, even when they get over the hump and they're like, I'm going to put out content, it's like, they feel like it's above them to like actually spend time and grind it out on the platform. It's like, but I'm putting out fantastic rehabilitation content. Like, I don't have to get on there and interact with this swine. Like, it's like, yeah, you don't have to, if you want to like grow ridiculously slow. And here's the thing I would say to somebody like that, even if they're growing fast, I'd be like, and you could be growing faster. Like, even if you are the lottery ticket, you could have done it way better and had way more, because guess what? The algorithm's always going to get worse. So get it while you can. Like, it's still easy. It's harder than yesterday. It's easier than tomorrow. And if you keep waiting and you keep just being like, well, we're just going to put out content and like, it'll just like organically, we'll kind of like hope for the best. Like, hope ain't a marketing strategy. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I kind of wanted to double back on what you had said about earlier, in that the email lists being really more important because it's not going to fizzle out if a trend changes. But I appreciate you answering that question. To go back a little bit on, you had started mentioning like you might send out like a free ebook or something. What can you be a little more specific, or like walk me through a little bit of what's something you might put out on social media to then try and get that email so that you can create that kind of a platform instead?
Tell you exactly how we do it. So with the with this, and I'll set the context for why it's saying this, for why I'm saying this. Within the Smart Chiropractor, we recently just switched around things, and now we have a thing called Patient Pilot. It's basically a product. It's an email marketing product. But I say that because I'm going to tell you exactly how we do it within that product. So, and I'll give you context to that. We work with 300 chiropractors spread throughout the world, and we send 1.1 million emails per month just through that product. I send about 100,000, 75 to 100,000 a month personally to my list, and we send 1.1 million to that list. So I probably have sent about probably over 250 million emails in my life. I mean, way over 250 million. We're sending 10 million a year just through Patient Pilot, and we've been doing it for a long time. So, and I started sending emails 15 years ago, like with a small list, right, and building it up. So, and I control email marketing through a variety of other companies within and outside the chiropractic space that have really big lists. So, so we have. I say that to say, I have really good data as far as like what actually works here, right? It's not like we have one account and I'm like, here's what happens. Like, we have such aggregate data, it's actually hard to sort through. But what I recommend at a base level. So I'm going to strip it all back. So that's all that's all the context, but like, keep it simple. Like, we have 2 lead magnets that we use on websites for like exit intent pop-ups. You're ready to leave the website, something pops up before you leave to enter your email address. You can do the same thing in a link tree and have them just go to a landing page and enter their email, right? So it could be the same piece of content. I'm a huge fan of 7 days to blank. 7 days to get rid of low back pain. 7 days to better golf swing. 7 days to insert whatever problem your ideal person has. Because guess what? This makes a really nice sequence on the follow-up, where then you deliver the lead magnet immediately and you're like, great, here's your thing. It's awesome. We handcrafted this for you. You rule. The next day you send an email and be like, yo, hope you got that yesterday. If you didn't, here's the link to download it again. And here's my favorite thing out of it. And you pull out one thing that you already wrote in the lead magnet and put it in that email. And people are like, this guy's great. And then you send an email on day 4 and you're like, not over the hump yet? Give me a call today. Here's, and then on day 7, they should be over it. 7 days to blank, remember? So it's been 7 days. We're so happy. By the way, if you have not received all the benefit that you hoped for, you're not alone. We've helped thousands of other people with the same issue. Give us a call today if you'd like to get the best results in the fastest amount of time possible. And that is what we do for our clients. That is what we do for ourselves. And that is what all the biggest companies or smallest companies, but smartest companies in the world do to get consistent leads into their sequence. And those leads convert at a high level because they're not like, come in for $25. I didn't say anything about a free service. I'm anti-free service. Like, I don't understand. It does not compute in my brain. That's lazy. And it is most of the time run by ad companies who have their best interest at heart. And it's lazy from a provider perspective. It's lazy because that means you don't have a clear understanding of marketing or your business. So there are exceptions to that. If you're closing next week, if you don't get people in the door, run ads to get people in the door. The chiropractors need to be open, but most chiropractors running that aren't closing next week or next 2 weeks. They're running it and they're getting 50% show up rates, 50% conversions, and they're actually spending way more money on those advertising deep discounts because the conversion rate is this 50% show up, 50% conversion. Why not? You're already getting hundreds of clients. I mean, we talk about this all the time within Smart Chiro, but it's like you get hundreds of people visiting your website per month. You guys might have heard me say this before. The only people that cruises chiropractic websites on planet Earth for fun is me. Like, if somebody made it to your chiropractic website, give me a break. Like, they're local and they're interested. Like, nobody visits generic, no offense. I don't visit orthopedic websites in Michigan, living in Florida just for fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody visits a chiropractic website where that's not near them, just because they're cruising around the internet. Like, so if they made it to your website, there's a 99% chance they're local and somewhat interested. And most chiropractors don't even have a lead magnet on their website. Just like, whatever, traffic, we hope to convert a few people off our website and new patient onboarding email campaigns. We don't need that. Reactivation campaigns that teach and invite. We're a referral based business. Like, all right. I'm not trying to convert the unconvertible. I'm trying to say what works in a business sense. In an ethical business sense, that actually ironically means you don't have to do the stuff you don't want to do, which is like give services away for free or try to convert people on like weird ads or whatever else. Put out great content consistently, dial in, we say the holes in your bucket, patch the holes in your bucket, more water in the top, lead magnet. You can link from a link tree on social. You can put it on your website. You can use it multiple places. Have a good onboarding and welcome sequence. So you patch the sides, that's retention through active care. If somebody doesn't complete active care, whatever that plan is, 2 visits or 200 visits, they're less likely. You made the plan for a reason because you thought that was going to be best result. They drop out too soon, less referrals, less testimonials, less clinical result. You want them to complete active care. Patch the sides. That's welcome and onboarding campaign. Bottom of the bucket, reactivations. Most chiropractors, no bottom. People just come in the top, flow out the bottom, come back when you need to. Well, what? Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So it doesn't mean you're twisting their arm or being unethical. It's like, stay top of mind and consistent by consistently educating them so they can actually know when to raise their hand. Because an example I'll use, and I'm going off on a massive tangent on this, but I think it's important. The example I'll use is this happens all the time. Patient comes in to see you with, I use the same example I use all the time. Patient comes in to see you with insert complaint, low back complaint. They get great result. You take care of them. They're super happy. You stop seeing them for a little while. Oh, I wonder what happened to him. I don't know. He was super happy. He left. He referred some people. He left a testimonial. This guy's great. Like, I just haven't seen him in a while. 2 years later, person comes back. My low back's like bothering me again. I knew I had to come back here. Awesome, dude. What's been going on? We'll take care of you. Yeah, not too much. Like last year I got into a car accident. And like I hurt my neck and all this stuff. But I know you're a low back doctor. So I didn't want to come in here and like mess with you because you take care of low backs. Like, and this happens every chiropractic practice because they don't have great systems. And quite frankly, because they're not using social to stay in front of people at a high level that teaches and invites. And then there's no email system that actually does what it needs to do. And an email system is not, you miss your appointment. That's like that's not email marketing. That's transactional EHR type stuff. Marketing is staying in front of people, educating, inspiring, engaging so that they know when to raise their hand so that you continue to be the obvious choice. So that was a wicked long-winded tangent on that, but I think it's a critical component that's missing from so many practices that is just so important. Because so tying it back to a lead magnet, a 7 days to blank is a great way because you can use it in multiple places. It enables you to have a follow-up campaign that converts pretty well. And guess what? It's actually solving the problem that people are visiting your website for. If I visit a golf, tying back to having a niche audience, if I visit a golf website and I'm like, I like check it out. And I'm like, oh crap, like my phone rang or whatever else. And I'm ready to leave the website. And it's like 7 days to a better swing. And staying on the golf, I'm like, okay, all right. Like, I don't like golf, but I imagine if I did, I'd be like, sweet. Like, let me just grab that real quick. And guess what? As my partner, Jason says, business partner in Smart Chiro, it's like, there's two types of people, those that call to schedule an appointment now, or those that do later. Yes, but most chiropractors don't have a later. They just like, if the person doesn't call and schedule right now, like what? Like they left the website, there's no lead magnet, there's no reason to input information, they got busy or whatever else. On to the next. Oh, who is that visit? I don't know. I'll just Google again and hit the next guy or whatever the ad comes up. What that's hope. And again, I think hope is not. We hope we show up. Okay. Hope they figure out who our practice is again. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
Oh, I mean, I was gonna say, I appreciate you. Even if it took tangents, I appreciate the tangents, but being specific, like in answering that question, like I feel like students and new docs want to hear it, right? Instead of it's kind of depends, like vague, I just feel like that was very thorough. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you are saying it depends, but then you give us exactly what it depends on and then run us through those scenarios. That's something I feel like we don't get a whole lot. I had one last question just about monetizing. As I'm looking at it, it just seems like it's a whole other big topic. But earlier you're saying you monetize. Were you saying that you monetize your social media or your YouTube?
Yeah, I monetize. So I use most of my social for lead gen into products, right? So and it depends. Like my Instagram page, that's like me, like it's evidence-based chiropractor instead of the evidence-based chiropractor because I don't have enough characters on Instagram handle. So but that's like mostly like my personal life, stuff like that. So that's just, yeah, and there's a lot of docs that follow it and some students that follow it, but I don't talk a lot, like a ton of product outside of like open enrollment periods there or whatever else. So it depends, but Facebook, and then I have like obviously a personal Facebook page, which is like pretty much just like my stuff. And then Facebook pages and groups for every business. Right. So a lot of times we'll use social to build community and to drive interest. Right. So I'll use social to build community and drive interest, but YouTube specifically, like I have the amount of followers and watch time it takes where then I can monetize my channel. So I have monetization on my YouTube channel. So that's not the best, like the best monetization is always going to be, and I'm just going to speak I'm a very direct in terms of business terms. So the best way to monetize is to sell. like, monetization off of like what YouTube gives me, it's like if I sold one more product per month, I'd make way more than what YouTube, gives me an ad revenue or whatever else. Right. So I think the monetization, unless you're at like astronomical numbers, it's like, I think about music with like Spotify. It's like, unless you're getting like 1 billion streams, you're not making, much. I always compare it because I used to play music, like touring band professionally for a while. I'll get like $20 residual check still from like, Spotify. It's like, once every couple of months. It's like, if I sold one record, quote unquote, I'd make more than that. You know what I mean? In terms of, so it's like, I view it the same way in terms of practice and everything else. So I think building the audience is really to be able to then direct the audience to whatever your product is. So when I think of monetization, the real monetization comes to, getting them to the practice, getting them to purchase an online course, like whatever your business is about, right? So it's like, how can I help people? Like, what's my service offering that helps people? Like, I want to get the right people to that thing, right? So that's where you're always going to make the most money. And that's where I'm like, that's where building your list comes in so incredibly impactfully. But I think along the way, many of the channels and YouTube is probably maybe the easiest one, I would say, where it's like along the way, you might pick up an extra 50 or $100 or a couple $100 a month, just because of the view time that you're getting, et cetera. So I don't know if that really answered your question or not, but I think there's two ways to look at monetization. There's channel monetization, where the channel is paying you a certain amount of dollars. That's typically going to be super low unless you're like a real anomaly. Like there's probably like 5 or 6 chiropractors that I know that make 6 figures on YouTube, but it's like, that's like 5 or 6. Like that's really hard. Like you need real big numbers. And you can like look up the numbers of what it takes. I mean, it's big numbers to make that kind of money. So, and the other channels, it's like, they don't even pay out in that sort of fashion. Right. So I think it's really about how do you use it to build brand, to build community and awareness, and then to guide people towards whatever solutions you have. And then they get to like self-select, like, you're not forcing anybody to do anything. Like, it's just like, hey, that's why I love the teach and invite format, because you're not like hawking product all day. It's like, here's what we do. Here's what we're about. If this can help you, like, great. Like, here's how you do this. Here's how you do the shoulder exercise. Like, if you do this 80 times and your shoulder still hurts, you might want to take our shoulder course. Like, it's not like a hard sell, like, so, but it's super weird if you're like, want to take our shoulder course? Like, it's like, well, I don't know. Do you know anything about shoulders? So I think that's where it's like, what's your avatar? How do you teach and invite? And then most of your real monetization is going to happen off platform, whether that is through purchases, whether that's through in-person services, whether that's through digital products or services. And beautiful part about that is you get to choose like whatever you want to do. So it's like, what are you into? Like, what do you want to do? And you could, in-person services might be like, your total thing, but you're like, oh, let me just like do a project over the course of a few months, like create this thing and like see if it even sells anything, like, or maybe I'll just test this or put this up. Like, that's what sort of the fun is in business too. Is like, it gives you the opportunity to like explore what you're into.
Awesome. Yeah, that answered it perfectly. I really appreciate that. Okay, I think we're just about out of time, so we're going to move on to our rapid fire round. If you're interested in the
I will keep it rapid fire. I will not break format.
Sean, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So what would you be like? You obviously went through chiropractic school and decided to go that route. If you would not have gone that route, what would you be other than a chiropractor?
In 5th grade, I did a presentation on endoscopic knee surgery, and I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon doing endoscopic knee surgery until I was in college. So I probably would have just continued that way, and then maybe got diverted to music. If the bottom didn't fall out of the music industry, I might have stayed there.
Classic 5th grade project.
I wasn't a geek.
Not at all.
Don't worry, we were all geeks.
Speak for yourself, Alex.
Okay. Non-ball sport athletes hear me. All right. Okay, my question. Let's go favorite piece of advice given to you, and then favorite piece of advice that you like to give.
So the question was favorite piece of advice given to me and favorite piece of advice I like to give.
Correct.
There's a million things. I'm an avid book reader, but there's something that comes to mind for the chiropractor that I first worked for. And he said, we're not in the healthcare business, we're in the people business. And I think that's something that's always stuck with me. That's one thing that I think I received and that I think is important. Something that I would give, that's a really hard question to answer. I don't think that I'm necessarily super great at like one-liners or things like that by any stretch of the imagination, nor am I really particularly good storyteller. But I think the thing that would come to mind for me is that it's anything is achievable if you really put in the work to achieve it. And that doesn't mean that the road is easy, and it doesn't mean it's always exactly what you thought it was to begin with. But I truly do believe that everybody has the ability to kind of create the life that they actually want. But you have to take the action step. It's not a passive plan, it's an active plan.
Right.
Good answer. Last one. You said you're a big book reader. What's your favorite book? What book would you recommend that we read?
Classic would be Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Absolute classic. I don't think you can go wrong with that. If I look over here right now, I had I'm a big fan of Ogilvy on advertising. I love that book. I also love oh gosh, I got my whole library over there. I would start with Think and Grow Rich. If somebody has not read Think and Grow Rich, I think that is an absolutely critical book to get started with. I also like, there's a book by Paul Arden. It's like $5. It's like, it's not how good you are, it's how great you want to be, or something like that. It's super cheap. You can get on Amazon for like $5. It's super easy to read. Those are two books that I think are incredibly important and impactful books.
Well, thanks for that. And thank you so much for joining us today. That was that whole time I was just learning. I wasn't even thinking about questions. So I really appreciate the amount of time and detail you put into every answer you gave us, and for spending some time with us.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Do you want to let the audience know, all 100 listeners, where they can find you?
Yeah. So anybody wants to find me, you can search evidence-based chiropractor, the evidence-based chiropractor, and probably find me that way. I'm available on all channels. There's a podcast out there, or the Smart Chiropractor. Evidence-based chiropractor, you're going to find more about me. I'd highly recommend anybody check out the blog at the Smart Chiropractor. We put like a tremendous amount of work in. So there's like hundreds of articles written by me, and we have a team of writers who are chiropractors. There's clinical stuff, there's business stuff, there's marketing stuff, there's the inside of how we do things. We have spent a ridiculous amount of time, effort, and energy in there to be literally the best comprehensive, I'm going to say truly just clinical resource in chiropractic, and I'm super proud of what we have got out of it. And as you probably could imagine with what I said earlier, we track our keywords and stats meticulously, and we're getting a lot of traffic because we stuck up those keywords. So we did that on purpose, because we know that there's a lot of information and things that we think we have some expertise in, that other docs can learn from. And we also have friends that do some great stuff that have lended some guest pieces more in the clinical realm. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. Do you have any closing comments?
Thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for everybody listening and watching for being a chiropractor. The world needs more chiropractors, and people need movement-based care, and it's critically important. So if I can do anything to assist anybody, don't hesitate to reach out. Otherwise, keep being awesome.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, guys. Hit it.